today, there's a great disparity between where we are today and where we were 20, 30 years ago, as Brother Faisal said. I remember that the common complaint that we had was that we didn't have enough media platforms to report in the way that news should be reported, and particularly on Palestine. But alhamdulillah, today we have an ample number, but what remains is that the efficiency of that particular reporting. Just a few points made, which I hope I'll make in a few minutes. First of all, we need to understand the kind of battle that we are fighting. The battle that we are fighting is the battle over the official narrative of what has happened and continues to happen. It's who gets to write this chapter of history for the next 50, 100, 200 years, should Allah extend in the life of this world. Who's going to write? What is going to be written in the history books? Just like today we reflect on the Second World War, we reflect on the Industrial Revolution, the French Revolutions, the Tsar Revolution, and so on and so forth. And then we go even back towards the creation of these so-called empires and what they did around the world. Just like that, we are now entrusted in creating this chapter of history for the next generation and the generation thereafter. And hence, it's not about details, my dear brothers and sisters. It's not about how many. Is it 40,000 or is it 50,000 or is it 100,000? It's not about what kind of weapons were used, albeit that is of crucial importance. It's about what actually happened. And this is something that all of us are entrusted with doing. The issue with the media distorting the facts is of utmost importance to everyone. You see, we have the Western world particularly, or the Northern Hemisphere if you wish, claiming that it is the highest civilization, particularly proclaiming values such as democracy and human rights and liberties and all of that nonsense which now has been dispelled. But it's still hanging on to the coattails of those claims. I'm a lecturer in political sciences, and one of the things that we teach first year students is what democracy means. And democracy is essentially something that is built upon a common understanding, meaning democracy has a basic flaw in that how can you have any democracy? One person who's, let's say, a former minister, someone who's an intellectual, a university professor, someone of great experience, have one vote in an election, with someone who is ill-educated, who is probably illiterate, doesn't have any awareness of outside their own village, also having one vote. That's a basic flaw. However, this is remedied, as the theory goes, this is remedied by the fact that each of those people have access to the same pool of knowledge and information. And that pool of information and knowledge, one of the main elements thereof is the media. So if the media is distorted, if the media is polluted, if the media tells lies and fabricates facts, then it means that democracy doesn't even work. The whole construct of democracy comes collapsing down. So this is extremely important and something that we should always remind the Northerners and the Westerners of. Also, one thing, and I'm glad that my dear brother Ali Abu Rizq mentioned this, and that is the creation of a new sphere of media. And this was something that wasn't there when Gaza was first attacked, let's say in 2009, and we only had the BBC and CNN and Sky News to report what was happening, or to disinform, or to misinform absolutely. But now, by the grace of Allah, alhamdulillah, we have countless platforms where millions upon millions are turning to, away from the mainstream media and going to find their news from other platforms. And it is absolutely amazing how the very same tools that were created by the same civilization that we're talking about, the West and the Northern Hemisphere, those very same tools came back to bite that civilization and to show how manipulative, how hypocritical, how unjust that same civilization was. To the extent that this great, or as we are often told, greatest country in the entire world, the United States, goes out on an all-out war against an app called TikTok. Why is that? Because more than 75 or 78% of its content is pro-Palestine. Because millions upon millions upon millions of people, including the next generation of American leaders and Western leaders, are convinced of what they see and what they hear about Palestine, and that's something that doesn't befit the Zionist agenda. So, allow me. So with that, we need to understand that what has happened over the course of the past 16 months is an absolute re-education. A re-education of the entire world. A re-education of the fact that the media construct, the media sphere, unfortunately is no longer fit for purpose. We need to understand this, and this is very important. When we have more than 80% of the global media, you know, the hundreds of thousands of media platforms, whether mainstream or whether alternative, around the world owned by a clutch of mega oligarchs, of wealthy people and people who now not only are rich, but are now influential in the creation of power and decision making, such as Elon Musk. When we have that media controlled by those interest-driven people, then that media doesn't work anymore. When the media now is driven by finance, that media doesn't work anymore. And when that media is driven by ideology, especially false ideology such as the Zionist narrative, then it's definitely not fit for purpose. And this is something that we need to pay attention to. The important element that we have seen develop, and Gaza has really brought it to the fore, but before that, if you remember, we had the Sheikh Jarrah stories of Jerusalem and the like, and that is when the Palestinian narrative became more and more prominent. What has happened is that the consumer of the news has become an active part of the media narrative. You see, there's the news itself, the purveyor of the news, meaning either the BBC or Reuters or CNN or whoever, and then the way in which the narrative, the story, how they formulate it, and then at the end the consumer. And the consumer was always meant to be a passive part, just listening or watching. However, what has happened recently is that the consumer has become an active part of this narrative, meaning they don't like what they see, they switch off, they turn to somewhere else. They go and find and seek the channel that they choose. All of a sudden now the consumer is a very important element within the whole media construct, and that's something we need to pay attention to. And obviously, and I'd like to finish on this, I was advised that maybe one of the things I'd like to touch upon is the double standards or hypocrisy of Western media. I don't think we used to talk about this 30 years ago. I don't think we should continue to talk about this. It's not about double standards. There are no standards within the Western media. It's not about hypocrisy. They're not even trying to hide anything anymore. You're being hypocritical when you're saying something but you're believing in something else. No. Now it's a flagrant construct of lies, of deceptions. So I don't think the double standard and hypocrisy work anymore. It used to work when we were fighting against the propaganda of the war against Iraq. This was 22, 23 years ago, believe it or not. But it doesn't work anymore now. Now, unfortunately, we have the biggest industry in the world being backed by the richest individuals in the world who are vacuum and vacant of any kind of moral base, vacant of any kind of care for the truth or for any kind of realms of justice or morality or efficacy or the like, they are the ones who are deciding what the story is. It has nothing to do with the truth anymore. When they describe that there are around 40 to 44,000 dead in Gaza, you know, as though they just died, as though there was some sort of epidemic and it killed them off. When Trump talks about how Gaza is now, it's just a place of rubble, as though there was an earthquake or a tornado that tore through the Gaza Strip, and not a genocide that took place before the eyes of billions of people around the world. You see, that is the thing. Previously, we used to watch movies where the mafia would kill someone, but they would make sure there were no witnesses to the murder. Now, there are billions of witnesses, but yet the perpetrator of the crime insists that the crime did not happen. This is something we need to work hard on rectifying. Jazakum Allah khair.